Hey guys, I hope you're all doing well. So I wanted to put this together just to, um, how can I say this? I'm going to, in a sense, nitpick, but nitpick on purpose for the sake of what I can see as, directionally where you might want to just kind of look at things a little bit different. So that's really the purpose of this. I'm not making any claims as though what I'm suggesting is, the right way, the best way, the only way. But any comments I make are just really, in that vein, just to sort of, say directionally, you may want to think about that. So it's nitpicking, but it's nitpicking hopefully for a decent purpose. In other words, it's nitpicking for the mentality of it. Um, so there are five groups, and as we said last Thursday, one group still has to go. So I'm only critiquing four presentations, and that other group had to submit their presentation on Thursday. So that's locked in Blackboard. Um, anyway, so I'm just starting randomly. So with this one here, um, the agenda. So there's this sort of this design. Also, by the way, I totally realize that when you have to work in groups, it does become harder. So just it is what it is. It becomes harder to have things sort of completely look um, exactly the same or have the same aesthetic. I know sometimes that happens. Anyway, so this almost looked like the design for each slide, but it was the only slide that had that has this sort of these waves, but that's not really the nitpicking part. The nitpicking part is, this I think is just way too small. So whatever it might be, I don't know. I just created this pretty quickly, and this even took me longer than I wished. But I'm not saying that this is the right way either. But something that makes it larger, okay? But this is just way too small, and I know this is just the way PowerPoint is. When you go like this and you add stuff, it just things get smaller and smaller and smaller, and it's just weird that way how PowerPoint's set up. It's like you have all these boxes, and then you have it's just the text is too small. Um, here basically, I think that so this has got a gray background to it, and this one has a gray background to it, but none of the other ones really do. So I'm not really sure how come. I mean, again, I know there's people who do different parts, but nonetheless, I'm not really sure why it's sort of like that. Here, with all due respect, I don't really see much value in having this divider for a couple of reasons. So the other sections don't have a slide divider, and this is kind of, I don't know, this generic uh, um, branch structure here. I don't really think it kind of means all that much at the end of the day. Um, this I would just say, it's totally fine. I think I would just say you probably want to make this larger. So you got this large graphic, and so this is probably a little too much white space here and here in relative to what you want to what you're writing here. Same thing a little bit here too. Here I wanted to make, so on a couple of people's presentations, I just sort of did what I did last week in class. I sort of made um, a suggestion slide. So this is the original one that the team did, and then this is the one that I did. So two things. Number one, basically, I took this word sustainability and I basically, moved it a little bit down so it's center to this vertical line, and then I also made this larger. But what I did also is, if you notice, you want to basically own as much of the presentation as you can. So here, excuse me, do you really need college students need a source of income? Why not just say, why not just write income, but then speak to it? Job schedules class with college studies. How about just again write job schedules and then speak to it? College students get burnout, so I changed this to burnout. And then here, this is just it's too many words in a little quadrant here. Often, comma, students have to choose between grades and to pay bills. I mean, that's almost like a full grammatical sentence. So why not something like grades or pay bills question mark? So stuff like this, that's why I'm saying I'm nitpicking, but it's nitpicking for the mentality of things, and I think that the mentality will help you. The other thing I wanted to just quickly mention, I also realize that this is a summer class and it's abbreviated. So I don't want you to think that I'm hurting you on this. But I would like to see as much directionally as much as you can with the last presentation we have next week. Um, Here, I didn't make another duplicate slide. Same concept. I think you get it with the size and the thing with the reducing the words. One other thing I forgot to mention here, and something I'm going to mention with a lot of groups, for it's really the same principle, just in different form. So here, what's this is good. I like this. This is perfectly fine. But when you basically are speaking to it, why not perhaps use simple animation? I used animation with the Apple presentation last week. So have this quadrant, come up, then the job schedules, then this one and this one. I mean, whatever direction you want to go to, either if you want to go clockwise, counterclockwise. But this is where animation helps, and the reason why is because as you're speaking to each of these, you are your audience is really giving attention to each of your points as you're making each point. But when you essentially throw a slide that has a lot on it at once, well, we're all looking at four things at once, and you're talking about the first one. um, it does take attention away from things a little bit. It really does. Here, so this has got, there's two slides here. Maybe they were done by these two slides were done by one person. So it's got like this gray motif, um, but none of the other slides do. So again, like um, consistency with the aesthetic. And then the other thing that I didn't really get, so again, sorry, nitpicking. So this is gray, and then this is like a dark gray, and then you have this, which is the same. So this is gray, and then all of a sudden it's like a really light gray. But why? Um, so not only are these two slides inconsistent with the other slides, but then there's an inconsistency on this motif uh, among just between these two slides. Here, I just think this is just way too small. I mean, even you could probably make it a little bit in some way, shape, or form better. But even I mean, even if you kind of like, I don't know, it's not working right. Yeah, I mean, even if you just kind of make it larger, like this or something, at least it helps. So figure out something like that. This was fine, except once again, so it's like there's this motif on the slide, and this is a fine motif. I don't have an issue with it, but no other slide has it. And then here, um, I thought this was good, and this was where someone took the feedback that I had from last time about making the numbers more dynamic or impactful. You probably need to have, I would say, something in these boxes as a descriptor. That would probably help when you're presenting it like this. I don't want to discourage anyone. This is like good, okay? It really is. But you probably want to have some kind of descriptor on it. And you say, and then you see this. See, this is great. Like, this is great, by the way. Um, okay, so that's that. This one, the issues that I saw with it. So, um, these kind of things matter. So when you look at the type, face, as well as the size. So this is Calibri 28, fine. This is Calibri 28, fine. This is as well. Um, but all of a sudden, this is Calibri 40. Now, if you're saying, well, hey, Al, come on, give me a break. This one had less on the slide, and therefore we punched up the size, the font size, to basically not have too much white space. Excuse me. I get it, but then you want to go back and pick um, a size that actually makes sense for all of your slides. So if 40 is here and what was it, 28? 28 is here, then just pick something that's consistent. Same problem, here. And then all of a sudden, this is like 45. Um, so you want to be consistent with that kind of stuff. Here's another thing. So there's we talked about slide titles when I was doing, after my Apple presentation, but so all these slides have slide titles, but this is not underlined. This is not underlined. Then all of a sudden, this is underlined. This slide title is underlined. So there's an inconsistency there. This has a particular motif and style to it. I mean, I know this is, pulled from the internet. That's fine. But then you've got, but then this, and I don't remember, by the way. It could have made sense in the presentation itself, but then then this kind of matches that same motif. But then you've got this again, which looks like, and again, sorry, this is one thing that I take a lot of copious notes when I'm observing, but I don't remember something like this. But either A, you may not have needed this because, you already kind of addressed the language thing, I believe, or if you're making a different point on the language. So to me, I think you got to have to, so this is actually, I think, good to talk about. So you kind of have to, make some judgment calls here. This and this don't really go together. And because you already talked about language at one point, you just, in my opinion, you probably don't need this. Here, so, this is fine. Just a little suggestion. So to make it look better, excuse me, I shouldn't say better, that's the wrong word. To make it look more consistent in the future, you might want to look for images that basically don't have a background. So then, in other words, it would all be no background, so it would just be your images on white. So it's like blue, blue, but then white. If these basically were images that were also available without a background, or you found something that was, close enough without a background, so then it would be, the image, the image, the image, all three on white. Okay, I didn't really have much to say here, although this I think is too small. This I think is too small. This was actually really great. I really, really like this, by the way. It's nice. It looks good. Okay, so I think that was that. Sorry, I'm kind of tired, by the way. It's 1:20 in the morning, but I figured I'd just, see, it's 1:20 in the morning. But I figured I'd just, get this done because I got other stuff to do. Okay, so this one. On this one, so there was also the issue of the consistency with the size of the font. This is Arial 21. This here is Arial 24. So the word agenda, and all the other title slides basically are in black. And then here, I know whoever set this up wanted to put a background, but see, this title slide is gray, so it doesn't match. And I would also say, by the way, see, you're trying, not that I don't want to come across as though I'm like, I know what the hell I'm talking about in terms of art, but this also, it just seems as though this is competing maybe a tad. If I believe this is not too difficult to do, but a background like this is cool and all, it's fine, but you may want to have it a little bit lighter so it's not competing per se with the words on the page. I had something to say here, and I hope this makes sense. I hope you don't think I'm making a stretch here. This is not I'm not trying to force fit anything. So I kind of think I remember this part of the actual presentation. So this root cause analysis, um, so you're talking about this, the pollution and all that, and the root cause analysis. But here's the thing that I wanted to mention, which I think is pretty important. So you want to have your photos match what's on the slide. So you see what I think is the problem here? So this is a photo of plastic bag pollution. We all get it. But also, this is talking about, the innovation, the thing that, you're bringing to the table. So what does lightweight, handy, cheap, thin, waterproof, and durable have to do with a picture of, I don't know, a lake with a hell of a lot of pollution and plastic bags? In other words, you know what? So that's essentially what I mean. It seems as though this picture kind of related to the last point, or this is just titled wrong. But the bigger issue is these 6 words don't match this photo. It really doesn't. So I threw this in here. So this is actually in my book, in my guide. Um, there's an area where I've got this little passage where I say a picture is not always worth 1,000 words. Um, so why I kind of threw this in here really quick. So a lot of people make this mistake, by the way. A lot of professionals make this mistake. They'll be talking about something, they'll be doing a presentation, and they'll say something to the effect of, you know what? And when I turned 50 years old, that's when I really started to see a lot of success with my business, and my business was really, growing at that point. So it's a fine point to make, and if you're gonna have a slide for it, but you don't put, your 50, like happy 50th birthday, because the point you're trying to make, you're trying to say that, this is when your business really expanded. So if you're going to use an image, it should be an image that relates something along the lines of your business, right? A tasteful image that kind of makes sense. It has nothing to do with your damn birthday or the fact that you're now 50. It just so happens that you said that there was a context to it. Hey, when I turned 50, when I became 50, this is what happened for me in terms of my business. But people will do that. People will basically get too casual with images, and they'll put the wrong image. So, again, a picture is not always worth 1,000 words, and that's what I think is a little bit of the issue here. These words and this. This I think so. There's the consistency issue. Now this is 18. I appreciate how these are kind of these icons are here, these images are here, but okay, sorry. So nitpicking, yes, but hopefully for a broader, more macro reason. So I get this. I actually like this one. I get this. I mean, you know, there's lots of these little icons out there. If I understand, I mean, I really had to look at this for a while. At first, I didn't even know what on earth this was. This looks like just a flat, unopened plastic bag, I believe. So how does this relate to strong, water resistant, easy to use. So in other words, once again, you don't want to pick images that are just kind of superficial. And then keep food fresh and edible. I'm assuming this is like a roll of saran wrap of sorts, but I just think that you could pick a better picture. Um, okay, this I didn't really have anything to say here. So also actually no, excuse me, I did have something to say here. So you see how the titles for each slide, I mean, obviously, I put this in here, not this. The titles for each slide, they're in the exact same position, and these are, perfectly the same size and all that. So, I mean, with the exception of that one, that's this one that's gray, but they're all the same size and all that. But then when you get to this slide, so the image and the title are too close to each other aesthetically. It doesn't look good. So, that Apple presentation that I put together, I think Nate was the one who asked me if I practice, how many times I practice, and I said I swear I didn't practice a single time, and I didn't. But it did take me a while to put that damn PowerPoint together. By the way, that keynote, it really did. So all these little things, I basically, I had to worry about these aesthetic things. And there's probably things I could have done better too, but I did kind of put a lot of time in that. So if you look at it from this perspective, so, this, either move this down or move the title up. And if you move that title up, then move, this is probably a little too close also. Then move them all up. Okay. And then the other thing here, so titles generally speaking, should probably, everything should, if you're going to use titles for your slides, everything should really be underneath them. So this isn't underneath, so it could probably be set up, laid out a little bit differently. This, I think I even wrote in the notes to the group, so I like this. It was, nice and large and simple, but it's also kind of, above the title. So this is just a suggestion. I didn't completely recreate your pie chart, but I just inserted a basic one. So maybe you could do something like this. So just use a 3D pie chart. It's still nice and large. It is kind of the equivalent of that. But you see how it sits underneath the title slide? I just think aesthetically it just looks better. I'm not even talking about the fact that it's a 3D one versus a flat 2D one. But I think just, it just works better because it's underneath the title. Um, okay, and then I think one more. Okay, this one. This one I didn't have that many things to say. Just a couple of things. So this I thought was really, really good, by the way. I mean, not only the way it was presented, but also I think all of us can just, relate to this because it was I talk about this in BizCom 1, by the way, taking technical things, even if it's semi-technical like this, and then kind of simplifying it in the easiest way possible. This I thought was a little bit out of place, to be totally honest. Um, so I think that, this is just like a layout issue, so this image basically bleeds to the edge, we call that a bleed. So that's fine, but I don't know, it just seems like, so big square, excuse me, in the center, and then this thing like kind of off to the left. So I don't know, maybe you want to like adjust this, center this under this, move it a little bit, that kind of thing. This couple of things, I didn't really recreate the slide, but I did duplicate it. So it could probably be larger, to be totally honest. So instead of this, why not this? All I did was just really magnify it a little bit. That it really as simple as that. But the other thing that I wanted to mention Excuse me. And this was I really tried, but then I gave up because this is one of those PowerPoint things. I know this is smart art. I've used this design many times myself. So, and I've been using Keynote a little bit more than PowerPoint lately, so I kind of forgot how to do this. I couldn't get the animation to work right, but the point is, so this I could tell you there was no animation here. So when this slide was basically presented, it was presented like this. So this kind of goes back to that thing I had um, with the pie chart from the other group. So you basically have four distinct points to make as to why this problem happened in the first place. So I would suggest have them just do simple animation and have these appear one by one. Just have these appear one by one, speak to each of them, and then basically go down the list. Also, by the way, this is probably too many words in this little area here, but that's really the bigger takeaway. Um, the animation, something like that, does make a difference. Here, I actually kind of liked how the person basically. I did this a little bit with my Apple. Like the last slide in particular, actually, the one where I showed the images. So the first image of like a old, a young picture. I mean, sorry, an old picture of a young Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak when they first started Apple, and then basically I made that disappear, and then I put that trio of images, the goth chick, the students, and then the cute little Asian girl. So this person kind of sort of, you can see the mechanics here, kind of did the same thing. So I would just suggest you probably want to, so you see this, and you see this is minor. So the word iron, have the word iron basically be centered with the arrow. So the whole, looking at this as a quote unquote image is centered. And then I would probably also center this down a little bit. Um, this was good in terms of centering. So um, I don't I don't know what this is called, by the way. This type of, I don't know, these leaves, some type of lettuce. I don't know what it's called. But you see, this is centered with the arrow, and then this is centered, and then this is nice and centered. So that's really kind of all I wanted to say there. Um, Here, so I just in terms of aesthetic, just to be a fair, equal opportunity, critic. Here, basically, there's nothing really else that's in italics. So why necessarily do that in italics? I don't know. I don't really have much to say here. There was a little bit of an inconsistency issue here as well, by the way, at some parts I found. So Berlin Sans 25 is the font and the size. Um, okay, so this is also Berlin Sans, but there was there was something here. I swear. So this is 32. I know this is a header, by the way. This is so this I'm not suggesting that it should be the same um, font size. I'm just it's a consistency thing. Um, yeah. So then this goes back to Calibri. So you should probably use the same font. Um, yeah. So I think that was really it there. I didn't have too much with this presentation. Um, then perhaps see something like this. I get it. I know in a classroom setting we're just basically copying and pasting stuff, and we do that at work too. But this probably either deserves to be a lot larger, or maybe it's its own slide, something like that, so we can kind of get a good look at it. What Even though you take images from places, what you can do pretty easily. So, for example, you could crop this out and just make it blank, so that way if the presenter's walking us through this, they're just kind of focusing on a couple of words and then the diagram, that kind of thing. And probably a little bit of the same thing here. So you know what I mean. You have to play with this, but just making it larger, um, in some way, shape, or form. And this I thought was really good. Like a big photo. Um, yeah, and these folks had an appendix. I think that's it. So I apologize for just kind of like being really tired and talking this way. I just wanted to, get this done and get this out to you. I hope this helps. Hopefully, you guys know me by now that I'm really just saying all this for the sake of helping. And again, it's nitpicking, but I think that directionally, these were some of the things that I wanted to bring up. And this is just pertaining to PowerPoints. There's still more to come on what you guys did. I do have some more public comments about the 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 presentations, and putting the proposals in presentation form and all that. All right. Anyway, thanks guys. I will see you next week.